Kirshtaria Wodame is one of those mages who, at first glance, totally gives off Kenneth vibes. You know the type. Arrogant, condescending, smug, selfish, and completely focused on his own goals like nobody else matters. And honestly, if you dig into his backstory, it's kinda similar to Kenneth's too. From the outside, he definitely looks like that guy. But once you actually get to know Kirshtaria, it's the total opposite. Like, this guy is surprisingly chill. He even cracks a few awkward dad jokes in front of Kadok, and Kadok legit has no idea how to respond. That's just one of the hidden sides of Kirshtaria Wodame, the perfect leader of cryptors, overflowing with charisma, and one of the most brilliant mages out there. You see, people usually aren't what they seem at first glance. And yeah, not to go full don't judge a book by its cover on you or whatever, but it's true. We tend to judge based on appearances. So when the big boss who can bend steel turns out to also be a Harvard-level intellectual who likes to go off about literature, it catches people off guard. And that's what we're talking about today. The hidden sides of the cryptors that most people don't even realize exist. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Why talk about the cryptors? Or maybe even, is this guy finally running out of video ideas, or what? But listen. The cryptors are honestly one of the most interesting concepts ever implemented in FGO. Fight me. I mean, Fate originally started as a battle between 7 masters, right? And now in FGO, we've got 7 mages who were brought back from the dead, basically thrown into a world-ending battle. And we, the player, are the 8th one, the outsider who breaks the entire system. It's literally a world versus world kind of conflict, with insanely high stakes and deeply compelling characters. Even just from a design standpoint, they're already super eye-catching. Each one's designed by a different artist, and their personalities all unique. So yeah, if players only pay attention to how they fight in-game, that's honestly a huge missed opportunity. Because each of them has so much character depth. And if we dig a little deeper, we might just find some really surprising sides to them. You know what? For familiarity's sake, let's take a quick detour outside the Fate series. This is one of those shows that almost everyone knows. Think My Hero Academia. You know Bakugo, right? He's introduced as the bully. Loud, aggressive, zero redeeming traits, and would probably deck someone without thinking twice. But it turns out the guy's way smarter than he looks. Underneath that explosive temper, he's actually a hardcore perfectionist. This kid puts in serious effort to master anything he gets into, and apparently he also likes cooking. And he's actually good at it. He even once asked a friend's family for a recipe so he could study it later at home. That's the kind of detail you'd never notice unless you really paid attention to the series. Same energy applies to the cryptors in FGO. Now let's talk about the other cryptors. I'll just go in order from the beginning. We already touched on Kirsch, so let's move on for now. I'll come back to him later. For now, let's talk about this guy, Kadok Zemlupus. From the start, Kadok comes off as a realist. He doesn't aim too high, but he's got strong resolve. He knows his limits and finds creative ways around them. He's not above fighting dirty if that's what it takes. And honestly, it works. His plan in Russia was layered as hell, and it nearly succeeded. And yeah, he can be a bit petty too. He throws shade at MASH and Fujimaru more than a few times, especially about how Fujimaru got chosen as a master and literally saved the planet. But underneath all that, there's a side of him that rarely, well, basically never shows. You see, Kadok actually really likes rock music. No joke. Even though he's completely spiraling from his inferiority complex when Chaldea meets him again, he casually mentions that he misses listening to rock. But because Lost Belt Russia is such an isolated place with extreme conditions, not to mention the earth has already been bleached, he can't listen to it anymore. That's such a human thing to say. You know, it's the same kind of vibe as seeing a big bad enemy of the world buying groceries at the local supermarket. Another hidden side of Kadok is that, behind his harsh words, if you ask him for help or ask him something, he'll always answer and lend a hand. Well, it's surprising, but also not really. From his demeanor, he seems like the type who doesn't want to be bothered because he's always busy. But it turns out, if Fujimaru doesn't know something, Kadok is willing to explain and teach him, and he's actually pretty good as a senpai. Now let's move on to Ophelia Famers-Alone. Let's be real, just from her design alone, you can tell she's the strict, obedient type. Neat outfit, straight posture, serious expression, sleek hair. She totally fits the rule-following office lady trope. She's basically described as the secretary of the Cryptors, always trying to keep the group running smoothly and efficiently. And yeah, that checks out. She's super loyal to her leader, Kirshtaria, who also happens to be her crush. But here's where it gets interesting. Ophelia has this hidden side that's kinda there in plain sight, but easy to miss if you're not paying attention. See, even though she's someone who puts Kirshtaria above all else and has this noble, dutiful nature, she's absolutely terrible at making decisions. That's her biggest flaw. She can't commit to anything. Just think about it. She wants to be Kirshtaria's right-hand woman, but she's too scared to get close to him. She's supposed to be fighting against Chaldea, but she keeps holding back because deep down, she really wants to be friends with Mash. And if you've actually played through her chapter, you'll know how badly she wants that friendship. Like, to the point where she'll literally debuff her own Sigurd if he tries to hurt Mash. No joke. Some players even noticed this and started using Mash's taunt skills just to bait out those debuffs from Ophelia. And then there's her Lost Belt. She wants to be a Cryptor who can handle it, but she's not willing to get her hands dirty. You feel that contradiction, right? That indecisiveness ends up blowing up in her face, literally, when Surtur goes wild, unleashes his true form and kicks off Ragnarok. And even at the very end, when she turns on Surtur to stop him from destroying everything, she sacrifices herself, but still uses her last moments to encourage Mash rather than insult her, and even then she still refuses to betray Kirshtaria. I think that's what makes her so compelling. She's constantly torn between what she should do and what she wants to do, and that internal struggle is honestly really tragic. Next up, Akuta Hinako. Now, I feel like out of all the Cryptors, she's the most closed-off one. I mean, if you know her backstory, it totally makes sense why she keeps her distance from others. Well, spoiler alert, she's basically a vampire. You see, on the surface, she's stoic, a loner, and acts like she doesn't care about anything. Sometimes she even comes off as lazy when it comes to doing stuff. Whenever she's shown alone, she's usually reading a book, looking like a total bookworm lost in her own fantasy world. But you'll see a different light if you know her hidden side. What I really like about Akuta's hidden side is that it's kinda unique. Well, when we talk about a hidden side, it's usually the part of someone that's tucked away, something bigger or different from the impression people normally have of them. It's more like a side that's there but buried by their environment, and we discover it by paying attention to the story or their behavior. But with Akuta, it's not like that. In her case, it's truly hidden. She deliberately hides it. You see, unlike Kadok, whose hidden side is just stuff he never explains, or Ophelia, whose hidden side is sprinkled in her actions and only noticeable if you really pay attention, Akuta deliberately hides hers by flipping her behavior completely. And this is what I deduce to be her hidden side. She's always hiding something. She's a woman whose life is filled with secrets. Let's just take one part of the secret she's been hiding. This woman acts like an introvert, but in reality, every little behavior and mannerism that shows her introverted side is actually an effort to hide something. In this case, her true identity. Now, of course, you wouldn't be surprised, because yeah, some things are already obvious. For example, Akuta never wants to do health checkups with Dr. Roman, clearly because she's afraid of being found out. Or her reason for isolating herself. Same thing. But what about the others? Like her reading books. Turns out that has a reason too. Now what is it? It turns out she's not actually reading books. Well, yes, she does read them, but that's not really what she's doing most of the time. She only looks like she's reading if someone's watching her. It turns out she's actually secretly observing Team A members. Since she doesn't talk much with them, she often uses this method to watch them. The second reason is simply to cover her face. The reason is still the same, so her teammates don't find out her true identity. That's also why she always keeps a stoic poker face. I can't remember if this was explicitly stated in the story, but this is what I'm implying. Akuta has fangs in her mouth, which would be visible if she got angry, shouted, or opened her mouth too wide. So the reason for her stoic expression is literally because she doesn't want to make exaggerated facial expressions, as it might cause her to open her mouth wide and reveal her fangs. Another case is how she acts lazily in front of Team A to hide her personal agenda. As we know from Da Vinci, she often slacks off reading books in her room during health checkups, but in reality, she's hiding her vampire secret. She also stated that she had no intention of competing to develop her Lost Belt in front of the other cryptors. Just look at her Lost Belt grade. Only E, lower even than Kadok, who's arguably less proactive than her, and was the first to face the protagonist, yet still managed a grade D. Her abysmal score comes from putting almost no effort into advancing her team's goals, seemingly content to let the other 6 handle things first. In truth, she simply didn't want to compete because she was afraid of losing her husband again. She even deliberately kept Qin Shi Huang unaware of the other Lost Belts out of fear he'd use her husband as a weapon again. You see that, right? Everything she does is to hide something. Even her own body is deceiving. She actually manages to hide it well. If you look at Akuta without knowing her full context, you'd probably think she's a petite woman. I mean, even her Chaldea uniform makes her look completely flat. But surprisingly, she's actually hiding a pretty thick figure underneath. You can even see it in FGO's second opening, where Ophelia and Akuta are shown in their combat outfits. Turns out Akuta's bust is actually bigger than Ophelia's. Truly, a woman who lives her life hiding everything. Now after Akuta, who doesn't know this guy? The goat, the big bro, the big sis, the mom, the class clown, the good guy himself. Scandinavia Peperoncino. We all know how Pepe was throughout the Lost Belt journey. He's genuinely kind, super friendly, and can lighten up any situation just by joining the conversation. He stayed nice even to people who were supposed to be his rivals, whether it was the other cryptors or even Chaldea. He's so good-natured that even this guy, Daybit Sem Void, Mr. Weirdest Behavior on Earth, took the time to visit Pepe just to have a chat with him. And he actually smiled. Like, bro, that says a lot. But here's the thing. Despite how cheerful and positive Pepe looks on the outside, there's another side he never really shows. You see, deep down, he's actually way more fatalistic and cynical than he lets on. And that comes from his Shugendo abilities. One branch of that power is Rojinsu, which lets him know exactly how long he'll live and even what his destiny will be. He talked about this with Kirshtaria during the Singularity simulation, and even though it was just a simulation, it already showed him. He wasn't going to make it to the end with Kirsch. Pretty depressing, right? The 6 knowledges of Buddhist enlightenment basically give him insight into human destiny, fate, and his own place in it. Holmes, who tried to explain what the others mean, admitted he struggled to even put it into words. And privately, he's worried that instead of giving Pepe peace of mind, that knowledge just brought more chaos to his heart. That's why Pepe feels the world is ugly, and he includes himself in that ugliness. And maybe that's why he keeps smiling, keeps acting cheerful no matter how cruel his fate is. Honestly, that's kinda heartbreaking if you think about it. And speaking of Shugendo, you might be wondering how OP this ability is compared to the other masters. Well, Nasu actually answered this once. You see, Pepe is actually the strongest master in Chaldea when it comes to pure one-on-one combat. I don't remember exactly where it was said. Sorry, my memory's a bit hazy. But I know I read it somewhere. And yeah, that might sound surprising considering how insanely strong Kirshtaria is. But still, when we're talking overall war sense, Kirsch and Daybit are still on another level. Now that's 4 out of 7 cryptors we've covered. I'll do the other 3 another time. Sorry about that. I do have a reason why I can't finish it now. First, I honestly don't have much time. Second, there's a lot I want to talk about, especially Daybit. So I figured, if I want to make a long video about him and his hidden side, I'll just make a separate one so the viewers don't get bored, because I'm afraid this would drag on if it's too long. So for now, hit that subscribe button, share and like, and I'll see you guys next time.